Ethan Walker's hand froze on the door latch when he heard the woman whisper, "Please, mister, don't light that lantern. They'll see us." She was bleeding through her dress, two terrified children clutching her skirts, the summer storm screaming behind them at 2 in the morning. He'd buried his old life out here in these mountains. He'd sworn to never pick up a rifle again. But God help him, he was about to. If you believe some folks deserve a second chance at justice, hit that subscribe button. Stay with me to the very end of this story and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from tonight. I want to see how far Ethan's tale travels. The pounding came again harder. Ethan Walker had counted 3 knocks before he ever moved. He'd been a lawman long enough to know that nobody knocked at 2 in the morning unless somebody was already dead or about to be. He set the tin cup of coffee down on the table without spilling a drop. He didn't reach for the lantern. He reached for the rifle. "Who's out there?" His voice came out rough. He hadn't used it in 2 days. "Please?" The voice was a woman's breaking. "Please, mister. We got nowhere else to go." Ethan eased the rifle up against his shoulder. He thumbed the hammer back nice and slow. "State your business, ma'am." I can't say it through the door, please. My children. They're freezing out here." He stood there, breath held, listening through the wood. Behind the woman's voice came another sound. Small, high. The kind of crying a child does when they've already cried themselves out and don't have the strength to do it loud anymore. That sound did something to a man it couldn't undo. He slid the bolt. He cracked the door 6 inches. She nearly fell across the threshold. He caught her with his free hand, the rifle still up in the other. Behind her, 2 small shapes pressed against her skirts, a boy, maybe 8, a girl, maybe 5. Both of them soaked through. Both of them shaking so bad their teeth made a sound like dice rattling in a tin cup. The woman grabbed his shirt with a fist that had no strength left in it, but wouldn't let go. "Don't light it," she gasped. "The lantern, please, mister. Please don't light the lantern. They'll see us." Ethan looked past her into the dark. He couldn't see 10 feet for the rain, but he understood her. Somewhere out there in that black somebody was hunting for the glow of a window. He pulled them inside, shut the door, threw the bolt. "Get to the back wall, all of you. Stay low. Boy, you put your sister down on that pallet by the stove." "Yes, sir," the boy whispered. "Don't say sir to me, son. Just move." The woman wouldn't let go of his shirt. She had it fisted up like she meant to take it with her if she fell. Up close he could see what she was. 28 maybe. Hair come loose from a bun. A cut above her left eyebrow that had clotted brown into her hair. Her dress was wet through, but where it was wet through low on the left side that wasn't rainwater. He'd seen enough of that color to know. "Ma'am? Mary? All right, Mary, you're bleeding. I know. How long?" 2 days. Bullet? Knife. He'd seen it on her before she said it. He just wanted her to say it. "Sit down. They're maybe an hour behind us, maybe less. I rode hard, but the boy kept slipping off the saddle, and I had to keep stopping. Sit down, Mary." "Mister?" "Sit down." She sat. Her legs went out from under her halfway, and she landed hard on the bench. The boy made a sound like he was about to cry and then choked it off himself. Ethan saw him do it. 8 years old, and choking off his own crying because somewhere along the road his mother had told him not to make any noise. "What's your name, son?" "Samuel, sir." "Sam. Come here a minute." The boy came. Ethan crouched down to him. He kept the rifle in his right hand because he wasn't going to put it down for anything tonight, but he reached out with his left and put it on the boy's shoulder. "You done good getting your mama here. You hear me?" Samuel nodded. His chin was shaking, but he wouldn't let it. "What's the little one's name?" "Lucy, sir." "Lucy? All right. Sam, I want you to take Lucy back to that bed and you climb in with her and you don't make a sound, not a word, not a peep. Whatever you hear in this room, you don't make a sound. Can you do that for me?" "Yes, sir." "Don't say sir." "Yes." "Good boy." The boy went. Ethan watched him go. Then he turned back to Mary. "Now you talk." "I don't know where to start, mister." Start with who's chasing you. She closed her eyes. She breathed in, and the breathing was wrong on the left side. 6 men, maybe 7. They came on us about 90 miles south of here at a ranch we took shelter at. Folks named Hollister. They had a girl about Lucy's age. What happened to the Hollisters? They didn't make it past sunup. Ethan didn't say anything for a moment. How'd you... My husband had me put the children in the root cellar the night before. He had a feeling. I don't know how, but he had a feeling. The Hollisters didn't have a cellar of their own. They didn't know to hide. Your husband. She stopped. Her mouth made a shape that wouldn't make a sound. Mary, your husband. They got him 2 weeks ago, she whispered. 2 weeks ago next Tuesday. Ethan didn't say anything. He'd been a deputy marshal long enough to know that when somebody told you about somebody who got you, let them have the breath after. He was a surveyor, Mary said finally. For the railroad. He was laying line through the territories west of here, and he found... She looked up at him. Her eyes were a kind of green that looked like it used to laugh. He found something he wasn't supposed to find. What kind of something? Papers, land titles. Whole towns of land titles, all of them written in the names of dead people. And a list of who was buying those titles up. Senators. A federal judge in Denver. 2 cattlemen with names you'd recognize if I said 'em out loud. Ethan was quiet a long minute. How many people died, Mary? Whole settlement up at Painted Rock. 41 souls. They burned the church with people in it. They told the territorial paper it was Cheyenne. But it wasn't. My husband got the proof. He got the proof, and he came home, and he kissed me on the forehead, and he told me to ride for Silver Creek with the children and the papers, and not to look back, not for anything. He said he was going to ride after me in 2 days. He didn't come. He didn't come. The boy made a sound from the back of the cabin. Ethan looked. Lucy had her face buried in her brother's neck, and Samuel had his arm wrapped around her like he was twice his size. 8 years old. Mary? Yes. Where are these papers? She put her hand on her chest, on the wet part, where the blood was. Sewn in, she said. Inside the lining of the dress, right against the skin. Lord have mercy. I rode 3 nights with these papers under my heart. I didn't know if I'd make it to a 4th. Ethan stood up. He went to the window. He didn't pull back the muslin. He stood beside it, and he listened. He couldn't hear hooves. Not yet. The wind was worrying the chinking in the logs, and through all of it, no hooves. But that didn't mean nothing. A man who knew what he was doing didn't ride right up to a cabin in the dark. A man who knew what he was doing got off his horse 2 miles back, and he walked. Mary. Yes. The men chasing you. You got names? Just one. Tell it to me. My husband wrote it on the back of one of those papers. The night before he sent us off. He wrote it big enough I could read it through candlelight, and he made me say it back to him 3 times. He wrote, "If they come for you, the man comin' is named Silas Browen." The cup on the table was still steaming. The rifle in his hand was still warm where he'd been gripping it. But everything inside Ethan Walker went cold as a January creek. "Mister..." He didn't answer. "Mister, you all right?" He turned around slow. "You said Silas Browen." "Yes." "You sure of it?" "I read it 10 times. I've said it to myself every mile of every night for 3 weeks. Silas Browen. I won't ever forget it." "No, ma'am," Ethan said. "I don't reckon you will." He walked past her without looking at her. He went to the chest at the foot of the bed. He opened it. He didn't take the lantern with him because he didn't need light for this. He could have found these things in pitch black at the bottom of a well. He took out a holster. He took out a Colt. He took out a box of cartridges and another box of cartridges and a tin of caps. He took out a coat that didn't belong in a summer cabin, a long oilskin coat he hadn't worn in 8 years. There was a star pinned to it. He looked at the star a long time. Then he laid the coat across the bed, and he started loading the Colt 1 round at a time. "Mister..." "My name's Ethan." "Ethan, you know him. I put Silas Browen in the territorial prison 9 years ago, Mary. He swore in open court that when he got out, he'd find me, and he'd kill me, and he'd kill any soul that ever spoke a kind word about me. 3 years ago they let him out. I heard he'd gone north up into the Wyoming country. I came up here, so when he went looking, he'd look the other direction. Oh God, he didn't go the other direction. He found a way to make a livin' findin' folks for rich men, and the rich men told him about a surveyor's wife, and he picked up the trail. And here you are. I led him here. You didn't lead him anywhere, Mary. He's been coming here for 9 years. You just got caught between us. She started to cry then. Not loud. The kind of crying a person does when they've been holding it for 100 miles and they can't hold it anymore, and they don't have the strength to make it big. Don't, Ethan said. My babies. Don't, Mary. Look at me. She looked at him. Your babies are gonna live. You can't promise me that. I'm not promising, I'm telling you. He clicked the cylinder shut on the Colt. He laid the coat with the star across the back of the chair, and the firelight from the stove caught the metal and made it shine, and he didn't look at it. How long have we got? I told you, an hour, maybe less. All right. Sam. The boy came up off the pallet without a word, like he'd been waiting for his name. Sam, listen to me close. The root cellar. Your mama know there's a root cellar in this cabin. Mary shook her head. There's a hatch under the rug by the stove. Inside the hatch is a ladder, and the ladder goes down 10 feet, and at the bottom of the ladder, there's a tunnel. The tunnel goes about 50 yards out under the slope and comes up in the rocks behind the cabin. I dug it the first summer I lived here. I dug it because a man with my history don't sleep good without one. You understand what I'm telling you? Yes, sir. I'm gonna put your mama and your sister down that hatch in a minute. And you. There's a lamp at the bottom of the ladder and matches, but you don't light that lamp till the hatch is shut and the rug's pulled back over and you've counted to 100. Slow. Yes. And you keep your sister quiet. I don't care how. You keep her quiet. Yes, sir. Good boy. He turned to Mary. She was standing up, holding herself up against the table, her free hand pressed flat over the wet place on her dress. Get up the rest of the way. You're staying. I'm staying. They'll kill you, Ethan. They might. There's 6 of them. 7. There ain't. What? There ain't gonna be 7 of them, ma'am. Not after I'm done. He said it the way a man says he's going to chop wood. No heat in it. No bragging. Just the fact of the thing. She put her hand on his arm. The hand was cold and shaking. Why? Why what? Why are you doing this? He looked down at her hand. Then he looked up at the boy at the back of the cabin, 8 years old, holding his little sister like he was a man twice over. Then he looked at Mary. Ma'am, I've been hiding in these mountains for 9 years on account of one bad man. I figure I'm overdue. That's not a reason. It's the one I got. Ethan. Yes. If you live, I'm gonna live, Mary. You hear me? I'm gonna live, and I'm gonna come down that hatch in a few hours, and I'm gonna tell you it's done, and then we're gonna ride for Silver Creek, and we're gonna put those papers under that knife wound of yours into the hand of a federal marshal who don't take money from senators. You hear? She nodded. She couldn't speak. Now get in the hatch. He pulled the rug back. He lifted the iron ring. The hatch came up smooth on greased hinges because he'd kept them greased every month of every year for 9 years on the chance that a night exactly like this one would come. He helped her down first. He could feel the heat through her dress where she was bleeding, and he didn't say anything about it. He'd patch her up after, if there was an after. Then Lucy. The little girl wouldn't go without him. She put her arms around his neck and held on. Lucy, he said. Don't. Lucy, look at me, sweetheart. She looked at him. Her eyes were the color of a summer sky after a hard rain. 5 years old. You ever had a piece of horehound candy? She shook her head. There's a tin of it in the cupboard down at the bottom of the ladder, right above where your mom'll be sittin'. You climb on down with Sam, and you tell your mama, Mr. Walker said you can have 1 piece, just 1, and you save the rest for when I come down. You comin' down? I am. Promise. He didn't promise. He'd told 1 promise tonight, and that was enough. You go on, sweetheart. He handed her down to her mother. Then Sam. Sam stopped on the top rung. He looked Ethan in the eye like a grown man twice his age. Mr. Walker. Yes, son. My pa would have stayed too. Ethan put his hand on the boy's head a moment. Then your pa was a good man, Sam. You go on now. The boy climbed down. Ethan lowered the hatch slow. He pulled the rug across. He stood up. He looked at the door. He took the long oilskin coat off the chair and he put it on, and the weight of it on his shoulders was a weight he hadn't carried in 8 years. The star caught the lamplight when he turned. He didn't look at it. He picked up the rifle in his right hand, and the Colt sat heavy on his hip on the left, and Ethan Walker, who'd told himself for 9 years that he was done with this work, walked to the window and stood beside it and waited for the sound of hooves. Outside, somewhere in the black summer rain, a man named Silas Browen was riding closer with 6 men at his back, and a vendetta 9 years deep. And Ethan Walker, for the first time in 9 years, smiled. He didn't have to wait long. The first sound came from the South Ridge. Not hooves. A horse blowing through its nose the way a horse does when its riders pulled it up sudden and held it still. Ethan counted in his head. 1, 2, 3. Then a second blow farther east. Then a third. 3 horses he could hear. That meant at least 3 more he couldn't. 6, he said to the empty room. Just like she said. He stepped back from the window. He moved the table 6 inches to the left so the door wouldn't open into it if a body came through. He took 2 cartridges out of his coat pocket and laid them on the windowsill where his hand could find them in the dark. Then he laid 2 more on the back of the chair. Then 2 more on the lid of the stove. A man fighting in his own house didn't run out of ammunition, not if he'd lived in it long enough. Outside, a voice came through the rain. Ethan Walker. Ethan didn't answer. Ethan Walker. I know you in there, son. I seen the smoke from your stove a half-mile back. The voice was older than Ethan remembered. It had gravel in it now. 9 years in a territorial prison would do that to a man's throat. You hearin' me, Walker? Ethan put his mouth close to the gap in the chinking. I hear you, Silas. A pause. Then a laugh. It wasn't a good laugh. Well, hell, there he is. I told the boys you was hereabouts. They didn't believe me. Said the man who took down the Brown gang wouldn't be hiding up in some line cabin like a trapper. I told him, I said, boys, you don't know Walker like I do. He's got a softness in him. He likes the quiet. What do you want, Silas? You know what I want. I'm asking. I want the woman. I want the children. I want the papers she's carrying under that pretty dress. Ain't no woman here. Walker. Said there ain't no woman here, Silas. You rode a long way for nothing. Turn your boys around and ride back. Now, Walker, that just hurts my feelings. I tracked her here through 3 days of rain. Tracked her right to your door. You think I'm fool enough to come riding up on you without I knew? Ethan didn't answer. I got a man in Silver Creek, Walker. Telegraph clerk. He's been wiring me every time a rider comes through asking after the federal marshal. 2 days ago a boy come through. Said his ma was hurt, and they was looking for help, and they was headed for the mountains. The clerk telegraphed me. The clerk told me about the cabin. The clerk told me about you. Ethan felt something turn over inside him. What's the clerk's name, Silas? You'll never go ask him, Walker. What's his name? Bill Pettigrew. The name was a knife in him. Bill Pettigrew had brought Ethan his mail every Tuesday for 7 years. Bill Pettigrew had buried his wife 2 summers ago, and Ethan had ridden down off the mountain to stand at the graveside because there wasn't nobody else to. He sold me, Ethan said quietly. They all sell Walker. That's the part of being a lawman you never did learn. Ethan closed his eyes 1 second. Just one. Then he opened them. Silas? Yes, Walker. You step off that horse and you walk up to my door alone and we'll settle what's between us. Just you and me. The way it should have been settled 9 years ago. That's a real noble offer. Take it. No. Why? Because I ain't here for honor, Walker. I'm here for money. Them senators is paying me $4,000 in gold for the woman's papers, and another $2,000 for her body, and another $500 apiece for the children on account of they don't want no witnesses old enough to talk. Ethan's hand on the rifle went tight. You'd kill children for $500 apiece. I'd kill 'em for 50. The rifle came up to Ethan's shoulder. He couldn't see Broen through the muslin and the dark, but he could hear where the voice was coming from, and a man who'd hunted in these mountains for 9 years could put a round through a wall and find the body on the other side. Then a small sound came from behind him, from under the floor. Ethan. He turned. The hatch was open 6 inches. Mary's eyes were just visible at the rim. Mary, get down. Ethan, get down. He's gonna burn the cabin. What? I heard him, through the chinkin. He told the men to gather the brush before they rode in. He said, if you wouldn't open the door, they'd smoke us out. He's gonna burn the cabin, Ethan. She came up the rest of the way out of the hatch. She had a small thing in her hand. He saw the shape of it, and his heart twisted. Mary, where'd you get that? My husband's. I had it sewn in with the papers. It's a Derringer. It's got 2 shots in it. I know. Mary, listen to me. 2 shots ain't gonna do. I know what 2 shots is gonna do, Ethan Walker. I rode from the Painted Rock settlement to this door with these 2 shots, and I'll tell you what I told myself every night of that ride. The first shot is for the man who comes through that door first. The second shot... Her voice didn't break, but it tried to. The second shot is so my babies don't get took. He stared at her. Mary, don't tell me I don't mean it. I wasn't going to. Then tell me what to do. He looked at her one more second. 28 years old, bleeding through her dress, 2 shots in a pocket gun, and ready to use the second one on herself before she let her babies get took. He'd spent 9 years up here trying to forget what kind of country this was. Get back down the hatch, he said. Sit at the bottom of the ladder. Don't fire that gun unless you see boots coming down the rungs. You hear me? Not unless you see boots. Ethan, the fire. I'll handle the fire. How? Never you mind how. Get down. She started down the ladder. Halfway down she stopped. Ethan! What? Don't die. I'll do my best, ma'am. She went. He pulled the hatch. He pulled the rug. Then he stood up and he walked to the door of the cabin and he laid his palm flat against the wood. Silas. Still here, Walker? You gonna burn this cabin? I am. Even though you don't know if she's in it or not. I know she's in it, Walker. How? A different voice answered, younger, higher, a voice Ethan knew. Because I told him, Mr. Walker. Ethan's hand went still on the door. Sammy. It's me, Mr. Walker. Ethan closed his eyes hard. Sammy Pettigrew. That you, son? Yes, sir. Bill's boy? Yes, sir. How old are you now, Sammy? 16, sir. 16 years old. And you're riding with Silas Broen. My pa said it was easy money, Mr. Walker. He said you wouldn't never know. Your pa send you up here to die, Sammy. A silence. Sammy, did your pa send you up here to die? He said you wouldn't shoot a boy, Mr. Walker. Your pa was right about that, Sammy. I ain't gonna shoot you. But every other man on that ridge I'm gonna put in the dirt before sunup, and if you're standing next to him when the lead starts flying, it ain't gonna pick you out special. You hear me, son? Yes, sir. Then you back away from those men right now. You back away and you walk south down that ridge, and you don't stop till you hit the creek. And you sit by that creek, and you don't move till this is done. Mr. Walker. Boy, your pa already sold one good man tonight. Don't make him bury his only son before morning. Walk. There was a silence on the ridge. A long one. Then Broen's voice, sharper than it had been. Sit down, boy. Don't you move. Sammy. Ethan called. Walk. I said sit down. A scuffle. A grunt. The sound of a body hitting wet ground hard. Then Sammy Pettigrew's voice, scared out of its 16 years. Mr. Walker, he's got his gun on me. A shot. Ethan flinched in spite of himself. Not because the shot had come at the cabin. Because it hadn't. The shot had gone the other direction, up on the ridge. He didn't hear Sammy Pettigrew anymore. For a long second, nobody outside said a word. "That a sample, Walker?" Browen called finally. His voice had a tightness in it now that hadn't been there before. "That what you wanted to hear? I just shot a 16-year-old boy in the throat to show you I mean what I say. Now you open this door or the next one I shoot is gonna be a 5-year-old girl, because I know she's in there and I know what she sounds like, and I've been listening for her crying ever since I rode up." Ethan didn't move. He couldn't move. A thing was happening inside him that hadn't happened in 9 years. "Walker, you hearin' me?" He heard. "Walker, I'm counting to 10. You don't open that door, the brush goes up. You hear me, Walker?" He heard. 1. Ethan walked back to the chair. He picked up the long oilskin coat with the star on it. He put it on. He buttoned it slow top to bottom, the way a man buttons a coat he means to die in. 2. He picked up the rifle. He levered around into the chamber. He laid it across the table with the muzzle pointed at the door. 3. He drew the Colt out of the holster. He checked the cylinder one more time. 6 rounds. He thumbed the hammer back to the half-cock notch and slid it back in the leather. 4. He went to the hatch. He didn't open it. He just put his hand flat on the rug above it. "Mary," he said quiet through the floor. "If you can hear me, I'm going out." 5. He didn't wait for an answer. There wasn't time for one. 6. He walked to the door. He laid his free hand on the bolt. 7. He took a breath. He let it out. 8. Silas. 9. Walker. "Silas, I'm coming out." The counting stopped. A laugh came back through the rain, slow and easy. "Now you're talking sense, son. I'm coming out alone, unarmed. I'm gonna step out on the porch with my hands open and my coat back so you can see I ain't carrying. And we're gonna talk. You ain't gonna talk, Walker. You're gonna die." "I'll die out here then, not in the cabin. You don't burn this cabin, Silas, not with me on the porch. You owe me that much from old times." A pause. "All right, Walker, come on out, hands open. You hold your fire till I'm clear of the door." "Hold." Ethan didn't move yet. He stood at the door with his hand on the bolt and his other hand on the Colt where it sat in the holster under the long coat, hidden the hammer cocked. He thought of Sam. 8 years old, 10 feet under his boots in a tunnel he dug 9 summers ago, because a man with his history didn't sleep good. He thought of Lucy, 5 years old, with a tin of whorehound candy and a promise he'd made through her hair. He thought of Mary, 28, with a derringer with 2 rounds in it and a knife wound under her heart. He thought of Sammy Pettigrew, 16 years old, dying right now on a wet ridge in the dark. And he thought of Bill Pettigrew, who'd telegraphed Silas Browen for 40 pieces of silver, and who didn't know yet that he'd just buried his only son. Ethan Walker. Deputy Marshal drew the bolt. He opened the door. He stepped out onto the porch with his hands raised, the long coat loose on his shoulders, the rain coming down hard on the brim of his hat. "All right, Silas," he called into the dark. "I'm out. I'm clear. You want to talk, you come up to this porch and we'll talk. I don't need to talk no more, Walker." "What?" "I said, I don't need to talk no more. You stepped out. That was all I needed." A whistle on the ridge. Sharp. Too short. Ethan understood the whistle a half-second before it mattered. Flankers. He'd been looking at one rider in front of him, but Browen had put 2 men around the back of the cabin while he'd been counting to 10. And when Browen had whistled, those 2 men had broken cover, and they were already running. For the windows. With torches. Ethan moved before he thought. He drew the Colt out from under the coat in one motion, and he didn't aim at Browen. He aimed past him. He aimed at the man on the right who was already lowering a torch toward the brush piled against the cabin's back wall. The Colt bucked in his hand. The man on the right went down with the torch still burning in his fist. Ethan was already turning. The second flanker on the left side 20 yards out with his torch up. The Colt bucked again. The second man went down. Ethan was 3 steps off the porch by then, moving low, the long coat flaring out behind him. "Walker." Browen was screaming, "Walker, you!" The third shot caught Browen high on the shoulder. Not the killing shot. The wrong shoulder on account of the rain in Ethan's eyes, and Browen turning his horse at the wrong second. But it knocked him sideways out of the saddle and into the mud, and the horse bolted. Ethan dove behind the woodpile. A crash of gunfire from the ridge. 3 rifles, maybe 4. Wood splinters flew off the top of the pile 6 inches above Ethan's head. He didn't return fire. Not yet. He needed the muzzle flashes to mark them. There. Top of the ridge left of the dead pine. Muzzle flash. There. Behind the fallen log. Muzzle flash. There. Halfway down the slope behind a boulder. Muzzle flash. 3 shooters. Plus Browen in the mud, hit but not dead. Plus the 2 flankers down. 5 accounted for. 6 men, Mary had said. Maybe 7. Where was the 7th? Ethan's stomach went cold. The cabin. While he'd been drawing fire on the porch, somebody had circled wide and was already at the cabin door. He could feel it in his bones, the way an old lawman feels a thing a half-second before he sees it. He came up over the woodpile with the Colt, and he sprinted for the door. "Mary!" He was screaming. "Mary, get down!" Inside the cabin a shot. A small one. A pocket gun. Then a man's voice, surprised and angry, and very close. Then a second shot. Then nothing. Ethan hit the door with his shoulder. He came through into the firelight with the Colt up, and his finger already taking up the slack on the trigger, and what he saw inside that cabin he was going to remember for the rest of whatever life he had left. The hatch was open. The rug was pulled back. A man Ethan didn't know was on his knees by the open hatch, both hands clutched to his stomach, blood coming through his fingers in a slow black flood. And Mary Caldwell was halfway up out of the hatch with the empty derringer in her shaking hand, and her free arm wrapped around little Lucy, who had her face pressed into her mother's bleeding side and wasn't making a sound. Sam was on the ladder behind her. He had a knife in his fist, an 8-year-old boy with a kitchen knife in his fist ready to use it. The man on his knees looked up at Ethan. He tried to say something. He couldn't. He fell over sideways onto the floor and he didn't move again. Mary looked at Ethan. Her mouth was working but no sound was coming out. "Mary!" "He came through the window," she whispered. "He came through the back window while you were on the porch. He came down the ladder. He had a knife. I shot him in the stomach with the first round." "You did good, Mary." "The second round wouldn't fire. The cap was wet." "The cap was wet, Ethan, and he was already coming down, and Sammy had the kitchen knife." "Mary, listen." A shout from outside. Browen's voice, hurt and full of murder. "Walker! Walker! You get out here." Ethan grabbed Mary by the arm. "Up! All of you! Up the ladder into the cabin, now!" "But you said—" "I said get down before. I'm saying get up now. Things have changed." "What changed?" "Browen's hit. He's hit bad, and he's down in the mud, and he's screaming, which means his men out on that ridge can hear that he's hit. And men who ride for a man like Silas Browen don't stay loyal once they hear him screaming. Those riflemen up there are figuring out right now whether they're getting paid for this job or not. And if they figure they ain't—" Ethan looked at Mary. He looked at the boy on the ladder with the knife. He looked at the little girl with her face buried in her mother's side. "If they figure they ain't getting paid," he said, "they're gonna ride down here and finish the job for free, on account of what they've already seen tonight." Outside in the rain, Silas Browen was howling Ethan's name into the dark like a wolf with a leg in a trap. And up on the ridge above the cabin, 3 men with rifles were already making up their minds. Mary came up the ladder slow. She was leaning on it more than climbing it. "Sam, Lucy, behind the stove, now." "Mr. Walker, behind the stove, son. Don't argue." Sam moved Lucy. The little girl wasn't crying anymore. She had gone past crying into a kind of stillness that scared Ethan worse than crying ever had. Outside, Browen was still screaming. "Walker, Walker, you son of a—" "Dawes." A new voice on the ridge. Higher up, calmer. "Dawes, you hearin' him?" "I'm hearin' him." He's gut-shot Dawes. I know it. Gut-shot men don't pay nobody. Ethan stood very still inside the cabin. He had his ear up against the chinking. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. Dawes, you listen to me. Walker took down Henry and took down Cole and took down Maddox in the cabin. That's 3 of us. Plus the Pettigrew kid. That's 4. There's me, there's you, there's Crawford. That's 3 of us left and one of him and Browen down there bleeding out his belly button into the mud. What are you saying? I'm saying the senators don't know how many of us rode up here. A pause. You saying we ride down there and pretend to finish it for Browen? I'm saying we ride down there, we tell Walker we're done. We tell him we'll ride out. He lets us go. And the senators get told by us that the woman and the papers burned in the cabin. Nobody to contradict it. Walker won't believe that. Walker's got a woman with a knife in her ribs and 2 children in his cabin, and a man named Silas Browen screaming his head off in the yard. Walker'll believe whatever gets him out of tonight alive. Ethan listened. He had heard the names. Dawes, Crawford, the 3rd man without a name. He knew Dawes. 10 years ago, Dawes had been a farmhand outside Cheyenne. Quiet boy. Good with horses. Men changed. He cracked the muslin back from the window a half-inch. He couldn't see them, but he could see the shape of the dark above the ridge, and there was no muzzle flash anymore. No rifle pointed down. That meant they were thinking. He moved to the door. He didn't open it. He put his face close to the wood. Dawes. The voice on the ridge stopped. Dawes, I know it's you up there. You was Hank Dawes's boy out of Cheyenne. You broke a colt for me in the spring of '86. A long silence. That's right, Walker. I'm going to ask you a question, Dawes, and I want you to answer it honest. You hear me. I hear you. Did Silas Browen tell you what's in the papers that woman is carrying under her dress? He told us they was railroad papers. He told you wrong, son. They ain't railroad papers. They're a list of names. Senators. A federal judge. 2 cattlemen out of Wyoming. They paid Silas to burn a settlement called Painted Rock, and they paid him to kill the surveyor who found out about it, and they paid him to kill the surveyor's wife. That's what's in the papers, Dawes. The names of the men who told Silas to do all that killing. A pause. How do I know you ain't lying, Walker? Because there's a federal marshal in Silver Creek waiting for those papers, son, and you ride down off that ridge and you ride off into the dark with me, and we take those papers to that marshal together, and you turn state's evidence on Silas Browen, and you sleep in your own bed in Cheyenne tomorrow night, a free man instead of a hunted one. Another silence. Then Browen's voice. Not screaming now. Worse. Calm. Dawes. Boss. Dawes, I can hear every word he's saying to you, son, and I want you to remember something before you make up your mind. Browen. My brother runs a farm outside Laramie, Dawes, with a wife and 2 daughters on it. And my brother knows where every man who rides for me lives. And every man who rides for me before he comes to ride for me gives me an address. You give me your mother's address in Cheyenne, didn't you, Dawes? 6 months ago, when you signed on. Silence. You answer me, Dawes. I gave it. That's what I thought. You ride down off that ridge with Walker's son, and tomorrow my brother's gonna pay your mama a visit, and he's gonna burn her in her own kitchen. And then he's gonna ride to Crawford's wife in Bismarck, and he's gonna do the same. You boys understand me. A different voice. The one Ethan didn't have a name for. Boss, you been shot. I've been shot. I ain't dead. And my brother ain't shot. My brother's drinking coffee in a kitchen 600 miles from here, and my brother's gonna start riding by sunup either way. Whether I come back or whether I don't. The only question is whether he rides on past your family's houses or whether he stops at them. Ethan closed his eyes. He knew Silas Browen. It was true. Every word. Dawes, Ethan called. Don't listen to him. Walker, Dawes, that man telling you about his brother is gut shot in the mud. He'll be dead inside the hour. And his brother in Laramie don't know nothing about no ride tomorrow. He's lying, son. He's lying to keep you scared. How do you know? Because I've been doing this work since before you was old enough to ride. A man on his back in the mud bleeding out his belly says whatever keeps the men around him from running. Don't let him use your mama against you, Dawes. Don't let a dead man do that to you. A silence that felt longer than the storm. Crawford. Yeah, Dawes. What you think? I think Walker's right. You think Browen's lying? I think Browen ain't gonna live till sunup whether we ride or whether we stay. Boys. Browen's voice. Different now. The calm cracking. Boys, you listen to me. Walker. Yes, Dawes. You give me your word. State's evidence. Silver Creek Marshal. You got my word, son. And you don't shoot me when I come down off this ridge. I don't shoot any man who rides down with his hands open. And Crawford. Crawford too. A pause. Boss? Dawes, you do this and so help me God. Boss, you got shot. Save your breath. The riflemen came down off the ridge. Ethan watched them through the chinking. Two shapes moving slow through the rain rifles up over their heads with both hands the way a man does when he means surrender and means it. They walked past Browen in the mud. They didn't look at him. The third man stayed up on the ridge. That was wrong. Mary. Yes. Get the children further back, behind the chest, now. What is it? There's 3 men come down off that ridge tonight. There's only 2 walk into my door. The third one didn't surrender. The third one's still up there. And he's still got a rifle. Oh God. Get them back. She moved. Sam and Lucy went behind the chest at the back wall. Mary crouched in front of them with the empty derringer in one hand and the kitchen knife in the other. Ethan called through the door. Dawes? Yeah, Walker. Stop where you are. What? Where's the third man? Where's Renfro or whoever he is? He came down right behind us, Walker. He didn't, son. He's still on the ridge. Look behind you. A pause. Boss? Don't call me boss. Look behind you, Dawes. You see your friend. Walker, I don't. A rifle fired from up on the ridge. Dawes went down. Crawford spun and tried to fire back, and the second shot took him in the chest before he got the rifle leveled. He sat down hard in the mud. He looked at his hands. He fell over. Ethan was already through the door. He came out with the Colt up, and he didn't shout, and he didn't think, and he put 2 shots into the muzzle flash on the ridge, and the rifle up there fell silent. The third man up there didn't fire again. Either Ethan had hit him or the man had gone to ground. It didn't matter. There was something more important. Walker. Browen's voice. From the mud. 5 feet away. Ethan turned. The Colt swung. Browen was on his back, one hand pressed flat on his belly, the other hand on his belt. There was a pistol on the belt. His hand was on it. But the hand wasn't moving. The hand had stopped. Walker. Silas. You won. Looks that way. Come here. I ain't coming close enough for you to draw. I can't draw, Walker. Look at me. Ethan didn't look at him. Ethan kept the Colt level on Browen's chest. Say what you got to say from there. Browen laughed. Not much of one. You always was a careful man, Walker. That's what beat me 9 years ago. Wasn't your aim. Was that you waited. What you want, Silas? I want to tell you something. Then tell it. My brother. Yeah. He's real. I figured. He's riding tomorrow, by sunup. To Cheyenne. To Cheyenne. To Laramie. To Bismarck. He's got the addresses, Walker. All 7 addresses. Every man what rode with me tonight, including yours. Browen smiled. There was blood between his teeth. Including mine, Walker. He's got my address too. He's the only kin I got, and he's a worse man than I am in case you was wondering. He don't care about no senators. He don't care about no papers. He cares about his brother. And come sunup when he hears I didn't come back, he's gonna start riding, and he ain't gonna stop riding till every name on his list is dead, and every house on his list is ash. Where do I find him, Silas? You don't. Where? Walker, I'm dying here. You think I'm gonna give you my brother's name? With my last breath, I might be a bad man, Walker. I ain't a small one. Ethan stared at him. How long, Silas? How long till he rides? Sun up tomorrow. That's what? 26 hours. More like 24 now. Storm cost you some hours, Walker. You've been talking a long time. Silas. Yeah, I'm gonna ask you a question, and I want you to think real careful before you answer. Because the answer to this question is the last thing you're ever gonna do on this earth, and I'd hate for you to do it wrong. Ask it, Walker. How do I stop him? Browen looked up at the sky. The rain was easing. Somewhere far off, the first gray of dawn was starting to show behind the clouds. You don't stop him, Walker. You go get to him before he gets to them. He left from a place called Cutter's Mill 3 days east of Laramie. He's there now. He'll ride at first light tomorrow. You ride hard, you might catch him before he leaves. You don't catch him before he leaves, you'll never catch him because he rides circles, and he don't sleep, and he don't make camp. Why you telling me this? Because I lost Walker, and a man who loses don't get to take the world down with him. That's a coward's death. I ain't dying a coward. All right, Silas. Walker. Yeah. Tell my brother. When you find him, tell him Silas died standin'. Even with a hole in his gut, tell him I died standin'. You're laying down, Silas. Lie for me, Walker. One time. Ethan looked at the man in the mud. The man who had ridden 9 years for a chance to put him under the dirt. The man who had killed a 16-year-old boy on a ridge an hour ago to make a point. All right, Silas, I'll lie for you. One time. Browen smiled again. It looked almost peaceful. Walker. Yeah. Gun on my belt. What about it? Hand it to me. Ethan didn't move. Walker. Don't make me die in the mud with my own piece sitting on my belt and me too weak to draw it. Don't make me beg, Walker. Don't make a man like me beg. Ethan walked over slow. He kept his Colt on Browen's chest the whole way. He reached down. He took the pistol off Browen's belt. He looked at it. He cocked it. He laid it in Browen's open hand. Thank you, Walker. Don't thank me. I would have done it different, if I'd lived. I don't doubt it. Brune lifted the gun, slow. He didn't lift it toward Ethan. He lifted it toward his own jaw. Walker. Yes, Silas. Get to my brother. The shot was small. The rain swallowed it. Ethan stood there a long second. Then he turned and walked back to the cabin without looking back. He went through the door. Mary was on her knees behind the chest. Sam had his arms around Lucy. Both children were silent. Mary tried to stand up. She got halfway up. She didn't get the rest of the way. Her eyes rolled back. Her knees gave. She went down sideways and hit the floor and didn't move. Mary! Ethan was across the cabin in 3 strides. He went to his knees next to her. He put his hand on her throat and felt for the pulse, and the pulse was there, but it was wrong. It was thready, and it was fast, and it was the kind of pulse that meant a body had finally stopped fighting. Sam was beside him. Mr. Walker. Sam. Is my mama dying? Ethan looked at the boy, 8 years old, holding his sister with one arm and the kitchen knife with the other, looking at his mother on the floor. Ethan didn't lie. She might be, son. Don't let her. I won't, Sam. Promise. I'm promising. He scooped Mary up off the floor. She weighed nothing. She had bled most of what was in her into the dress, and into the floor, and into the hatch, and into the ladder, and now there was almost nothing left to weigh. He laid her on the bed by the stove. He pulled her dress open down the front, all the way to where the wound was, and he stopped. The papers were there, sewn into the lining, a thick packet of them, brown with old blood and fresh blood. He didn't take them out, not yet. He took them with one hand and her dress with the other, and he bunched them both up, and he pressed them down hard on the wound under her ribs. Hard enough that she made a sound even unconscious. Hard enough that the bleeding finally slowed. He held them there. He didn't move. He couldn't move. Sam was at the foot of the bed. Mr. Walker? Yes, Sam. There was a man. Up on the ridge, the one who shot the others. I know it, son. He's still up there. I know. He's gonna come down. He might, son. What do we do? Ethan looked at the boy. Then he looked at Mary White as the papers from her dead husband, pressed under his hand against the wound that was killing her. He looked at the door. Sam. Yes, sir. Bring me the rifle. The boy brought the rifle. Ethan laid it on the bed beside Mary's hand. And up on the ridge above the cabin, a single rider walked his horse out of the dark and started down the slope toward the door. The rider walked the horse slow, hands raised, visible. Ethan stood in the doorway with the rifle up. That's far enough. The rider stopped. 20 yards out. Didn't lower the hands. I'm not armed, Mr. Walker. My rifle's on the saddle, my pistol's in the bag. Hands are empty. A woman's voice. Ethan's stomach turned over for the second time that night. Step down. I'd rather not. I've been riding 11 hours and my legs ain't gonna hold me. You want to shoot me on the horse. Who are you? My name's Margaret Holloway. I work for the Pinkerton Agency out of Denver. I've been tracking Silas Browen for 9 weeks. Prove it. There's a folded letter in my left vest pocket, signed by Alan Pinkerton himself. You want to come take it, you take it. I won't move. Ethan didn't move. Mr. Walker, I know what's inside that cabin. I know there's a woman bleeding out from a knife wound under her ribs. I know there's 2 children. I know the woman's name is Mary Caldwell, and the children are named Samuel and Lucy. I know her husband's name was Daniel, and I know he died in a livery stable in Painted Rock with a rope around his neck. I know all of this because I've been 3 days behind her on the trail. You've been 3 days behind her, why didn't you catch up to her? Because I wasn't trying to catch her. I was trying to catch what was chasing her. Ethan still didn't move. Mr. Walker, the woman in your cabin is dying. I've got medical kit on this saddle, sutures and carbolic and morphine. You can shoot me when she's stitched up if you don't trust me, but she ain't gonna last another hour the way she is. Sam came up beside him. 8 years old. Hadn't been told to come up, but came up anyway. Mr. Walker. She said carbolic. I heard her, Sam. Mama needs that, sir. Ethan looked at the boy. Then he looked at the rider. Margaret Holloway. Yes, sir. You step down. Slow. You walk to that hitching post. You drop your rifle and your pistol on the ground in front of it. Then you walk to my door with your hands up and your bag in front of you. If you make any move I don't like, I'll put a round through your throat. You understand me? I understand you. She did exactly what he said. She came up the steps with the bag in front of her. He took it from her. He looked through it. There was a kit. There was carbolic. There was morphine in a small bottle. There was a sewing case with surgical thread and curved needles. There was also a pearl-handled knife. What's the knife for? For what knives are for Mr. Walker? Now get out of my way and let me see her. He let her in. She went to Mary. She didn't ask permission. She put 2 fingers on Mary's throat. She lifted Mary's eyelid with her thumb. She pulled the wadded papers and dress away from the wound and looked at it for 2 seconds without flinching, then pressed the wadding back down. Mr. Walker. Yes. I need boiling water. I need every clean cloth in this cabin. I need that lantern moved here. I need you to hold her shoulders down because when I start cleaning this, she's gonna come up off this bed even unconscious. Sam. Yes, sir. Stove. Big pot. Water from the rain barrel. Now. Sam went. Margaret Holloway threaded a needle by lamplight. Her hands were steady. Mr. Walker. Yes. How many men did you kill out there tonight? 4, maybe 5. Including Browen. How'd Browen die? Put the gun under his own jaw. She didn't say anything for a moment. That's not like him. He had his reasons. What reasons? He told me about his brother. Margaret Holloway stopped threading the needle. She looked up at Ethan. He told you about Reuben. He didn't say a name. Reuben Browen, out of Cutter's Mill, rides at sunup tomorrow if Silas don't come back. You knew. I knew. That's what 9 weeks on Silas Browen's trail will teach a person. Reuben's why I've been riding alone, Mr. Walker. Reuben's why I never tried to take Silas in the open. Because Silas dies, Reuben rides. And Reuben's a worse problem than Silas ever was. How worse? Silas killed for money. Reuben kills for kin. And right now, Mr. Walker, every man who fired a shot at Silas tonight is on Reuben's list, including you. Sam came back with the pot. He set it on the stove. He didn't say a word. He went and stood by Lucy at the back wall. Margaret Holloway threaded the needle the rest of the way. She nodded at the bottle of morphine. Mr. Walker, half a dose into her. Under her tongue. Now. He did it. She started to work. Mary made a sound when the carbolic went in. A sound that wasn't a scream, because she didn't have the strength for a scream, but the kind of sound a body makes when the soul inside it is still trying to get out from under the pain. Ethan held her shoulders. How long has she been bleeding? 2 days. Damn it. 2 days. The wound's already fevered. She'll live. She might. If I'm fast and if I'm lucky, and if she's got more fight in her than most women I've sewn up. You said Painted Rock. Her husband was a surveyor for the railroad, found out about the land fraud. I know about the fraud, Mr. Walker. How? Because there's a federal judge in Silver Creek who's on the list. Ethan stopped breathing for a second. What did you say? You heard me. I was taking her to Silver Creek. I know you were. So was she. So was Browen. Eventually, he wanted the papers handed over there and burned in a stove with the woman watching. Silver Creek is the worst place in the territory you could take that packet, Mr. Walker. Silver Creek is where the conspiracy lives. The marshal in Silver Creek is clean, I checked, but the judge above him is bought, and the judge can quash any indictment the marshal brings. And there's a telegraph clerk down there named Bill Pettigrew. She looked up at him. Yes. I know about Pettigrew. How? Because he sold me out tonight. Telegraphed Browen the minute Mary's name came across his wire. Then you understand? I understand. She kept stitching. The needle went in. The needle came out. Ethan held Mary's shoulders and watched the woman work and tried to do the math in his head. 24 hours till Reuben Browen rode. 3 days hard ride from Cutter's Mill if a man knew the country. 5 days from where Ethan stood right now. It couldn't be done. Margaret. Yes. Reuben can't be stopped. No. Not by you, not by me, not by both of us together. Then what are we doing? She tied off the stitch. She started another. Mr. Walker, I'm not stopping Reuben. Reuben's gonna ride tomorrow whether you and I sit here or not. Reuben's gonna burn houses, and he's gonna kill children, and there ain't a thing you and I can do to put a hand on him in time. What you and I can do is decide who lives long enough to testify. Testify. Against the senators, against the judge, against the cattlemen. The papers in this woman's dress are the only evidence of any of it. They are the only thing in the world that can put the men behind Painted Rock in front of a court, and every man on the list of names in those papers knows it. They will spend everything they have to get them back, including hiring Reuben to come for them once they figure out we got him. So what do? We split, tonight, before sunup. Split how? You take the woman, ride east, hard, get her to Cheyenne. There's a federal prosecutor in Cheyenne named Mason. He's clean. He won't take a senator's coin. Hand the packet to him and not to anybody else, not even his clerks. And you? I ride for Cutter's Mill to find Reuben. You said Reuben can't be stopped. He can't be stopped from riding, but he can be told why he's riding. Reuben thinks his brother got killed by a federal posse on the orders of a railroad. That's the lie Silas always told him. Silas always told Reuben that the railroad was the enemy. Reuben don't know about the senators. Reuben don't know his brother was a hired dog for rich men. If somebody tells Reuben who really killed his brother and why, then maybe Reuben rides east instead of north. Maybe Reuben goes after the senators instead of the lawmen. That's a long maybe. It is. And if Reuben don't believe you, then Reuben kills me, Mr. Walker, but by then you're already in Cheyenne with the papers and the senators are already dead men whether they know it yet or not. Ethan looked at her. He'd known her 20 minutes. He believed her. Why are you doing this, Margaret? My sister was at Painted Rock, Mr. Walker. She was a school teacher. Her name was Eliza Holloway. She was 23 years old, and she was teaching the children to spell when the riders came. They burned the schoolhouse with the children inside. They held my sister's head in a horse trough until she stopped fighting. I read it in the coroner's report. She tied off the last stitch. She didn't look up. I've been a Pinkerton for 6 years, Mr. Walker. I've been good at it. But this ain't a job. This is the only thing left of my sister. This is me making her ghost rest. Ethan didn't say anything. She's done. The bleeding stopped. She'll wake in an hour, maybe 2. She'll be weak as a kitten for 2 weeks. But she'll wake up. Margaret. Yes. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. She wiped her hands on a clean cloth. Mary made a sound. Ethan turned. Mary's eyes were open, just barely, looking up at him. Ethan? I'm here, Mary. My babies. They're right here, both of them. They're fine. Sam, bring her your sister. Sam came up with Lucy in his arms. He set the little girl down on the bed beside her mother. Lucy curled up against Mary's side, careful of the wound like she'd been doing it for years. Mary closed her eyes. I dreamed Daniel. Yeah. He told me you was taking care of us. I'm trying to, ma'am. He said don't be afraid of you. That's good of him to say? Ethan. Yes, Mary. Are we gonna live? You're gonna live, Mary. I told you that already. My babies. Your babies are gonna live too. Ethan, the papers. I got the papers, Mary. I got 'em right here. They're gonna get to the right hands. Not Silver Creek. Cheyenne. There's a man named Mason in Cheyenne. We're riding for him at first light. Cheyenne. Cheyenne, you rest now. She closed her eyes. Lucy reached up, touched Ethan's hand. The first sound she'd made since she'd come through the door 6 hours ago. Mr. Walker. Yes, sweetheart. You're a good man, Mr. Walker. He couldn't say anything to that. Margaret Holloway was repacking her kit, quick and efficient. Mr. Walker. Yes. There's something else. Tell me. There's 7 names on that list. 7 men paid Silas to do Painted Rock. I memorized them off a copy I got my hands on 6 weeks ago. I'm gonna say all 7 of them out loud right now. And I want you to listen, because if anything happens to me on the road to Cutter's Mill, you need to know who you're handing those papers to a prosecutor about. You need to be sure he doesn't have one of these names on his list of friends. All right? She named them. Ethan listened. When she got to the 5th name, his hand went still on Mary's shoulder. Margaret? Yes. Say that 5th name again. Senator Henry Caldwell, of Wyoming Territory. Ethan looked down at Mary on the bed. Caldwell. Yes. Mary Caldwell. Daniel Caldwell. Common name, Mr. Walker. Margaret. The man who hired Silas Browan to kill Daniel Caldwell. He's named Caldwell. She was quiet a moment. Could be coincidence. Could be. But you don't think so? No, Margaret, I don't think so. Sam was looking up at him from the other side of the bed. Mr. Walker? Sam. My uncle's name is Henry. Ethan's hand on Mary's shoulder closed slow. Your daddy's brother. Yes, sir. What does he do, Sam? He's a senator. Mama said he was a senator once, from Wyoming. She said don't ever tell nobody because he didn't like Daddy, and Daddy didn't like him. The cabin was quiet a long second. Ethan looked at Margaret Holloway. Margaret Holloway looked at Ethan. Holy God, Mr. Walker. Yes, ma'am. Her own brother-in-law. Yes, ma'am. He paid Silas to kill his own brother. And his own brother's wife, and his own brother's children. For papers. For papers. And whatever else is on those papers that we ain't read yet. Margaret stood up. Mr. Walker. Yes. You change your plan. I am changing my plan. You don't take her to Cheyenne. No. Why? Because Senator Henry Caldwell knows his brother was carrying those papers when he died. Senator Henry Caldwell knows Mary was carrying them when she ran. Senator Henry Caldwell is going to have men watching every road into every territorial capital on the Western Plains. Cheyenne especially. Because Cheyenne is a half day from his ranch. Then where do you go? I don't know yet. Mary's voice came up from the bed, thin, almost gone, but there. Ethan? Yes, Mary. Is it Henry? He didn't lie to her. He was done lying to anybody tonight. It's Henry, Mary. Daniel knew. He knew. He told me. The night before he sent us off. He said, she stopped to breathe. He said his brother was the worst of them. He said if we went to Henry, Henry would smile and feed us supper and put our heads in nooses by sunup. Mary. Yes. Where did Daniel say to go? He said to go to a woman. What woman? He said her name was Holloway. Ethan turned slow. He looked at Margaret Holloway. Margaret Holloway looked back at him. She had gone very, very still. Mary, she said quietly, what did your husband tell you about a woman named Holloway? He said, Mary breathed. If anything went wrong, we was to ride for the woman whose sister died at Painted Rock. He said she'd been writing him letters. He said she was the only one in the territory who knew everything he knew. He said her name was Margaret Holloway, and she rode for the Pinkertons out of Denver, and we should find her and put the papers in her hand and nobody else's. Margaret Holloway sat down on the edge of the bed. She took Mary's hand. Mrs. Caldwell. Yes, your husband and I corresponded for 4 months. He was the only man on God's earth besides me who knew what really happened at Painted Rock. He was a good man, Mrs. Caldwell. He was. He told me about you. He said his wife was the strongest woman he'd ever known. He said she'd carry hell on her back across a river if it meant her babies got across with her. Mary's eyes leaked sideways into the pillow. She didn't make a sound. Margaret looked up at Ethan. Mr. Walker, plans have changed. Yes. You and I aren't splittin'. No. We're riding together, with the woman, with the children, east, to my agency office in Denver. There's a vault there. The papers go in the vault. And then we go to Washington, with her, with the children, with the papers. Washington. Senators don't get tried in territorial courts, Mr. Walker. They get tried in front of Congress, or in front of God. And if I have to drag the widow and the orphans of Daniel Caldwell up the Capitol steps in their traveling clothes to get every one of those 7 men hung for what they did at Painted Rock, then by God, that's what I'll do. What about Reuben? Reuben rides for whoever paid his brother. You take the man who paid the man who hired Reuben's brother out of the equation. You stop Reuben without ever putting a hand on him. Reuben don't ride for ghosts. Reuben rides for his brother's contracts. Senator Henry Caldwell is the contract. How do we get to a senator? She looked at Ethan. There was something in her face Ethan hadn't seen yet. Mr. Walker, I am a Pinkerton agent. I have a federal warrant in my saddlebag for the arrest of any man named on those papers signed by the Attorney General of the United States dated 3 weeks ago. I have been waitin' for the evidence to put under the warrant. I have been waitin' for those exact papers in your hand. She stood up. At first light we ride, the 4 of us, to Denver, and then on. And we don't stop riding until Henry Caldwell is in irons, and his brother's children are in a courtroom watching the gavel come down. She looked at Sam. She looked at Lucy. She put her hand flat on Mary's hand on the bed. Mrs. Caldwell, your husband's death is gonna mean something. I swear it on my sister's grave. Do you hear me, Mrs. Caldwell? I hear you, Mary whispered. Outside the cabin, the rain had stopped. The first gray of summer dawn was bleeding through the cracks in the chinking. And Ethan Walker, who'd told himself for 9 years that he was done with this work, started loading saddlebags for a ride that wouldn't end at any cabin in any mountains. They rode at first light. Ethan put Mary on the gentlest horse he owned, a brown mare named Junie, and he tied her into the saddle with strips of his own bedding because she didn't have the strength to hold herself up. Sam rode behind her with both arms wrapped around her waist, 8 years old, and the only thing keeping his mother in the saddle. Lucy rode in front of Ethan on the bay. Margaret Holloway rode point. They didn't take the road. Roads is where they'll be looking, Margaret said. Cheyenne Road, Silver Creek Road, Denver Road. All 3. We go cross-country till we hit the rail spur at Hawthorne. Then we put the woman and the children on a freight car. Then we ride alongside it on horseback, one of us up ahead and one of us behind. How long to Hawthorne? 2 days, if she lives that long. Mary was unconscious before they were a mile from the cabin. By midday, she was burning fever. Ethan stopped them at a creek. He soaked a cloth and laid it on Mary's forehead, and Sam held it there, while Ethan talked to Margaret over the horse's rump. "She ain't gonna make 2 days, Margaret." "I know it. What do we do?" "There's a homestead about 4 hours east of here. Folks named Mercer. The wife is a midwife. She knows me. She'll take her in. And then you and me ride on without her." "Without her?" "Yes, Mr. Walker, without her. Margaret, the whole point of those papers is that she gets to a courtroom in Washington. The whole point of those papers is they get to Washington. She don't have to be holding them when they get there. You and me can swear to where they came from. The woman needs 10 days flat on her back, Mr. Walker, or she dies. And she ain't dying in a saddle on my watch." Sam was looking up at them. "You're gonna leave my mama." "Sam, listen. You said we wasn't gonna split up, Mr. Walker." "I know what I said, son. You promised." "Sam, look at me." The boy looked at him. "I promised your mama would live. I'm keeping that promise. And the way I keep it is I leave her with somebody who can save her. You understand?" The boy didn't say anything. "Sam, you stay with your mama. You and Lucy both. You stay at the Mercer place, and you don't move from your mama's bedside till I come back for you. Whether that's 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years, I am coming back for you. You hear me, son?" "Yes, sir." "Don't say sir to me." "Yes." The Mercer homestead came up in the dusk. The wife was named Hannah Mercer. She was 40 years old. She'd buried 2 of her own children to fever. She didn't ask one question. She put Mary in the spare bed, and she put willow bark in a pot, and she put Sam at his mother's elbow with a cloth and a basin, and she told Lucy she could have a piece of cornbread if she stopped shaking, which Lucy did slow. Margaret Holloway pulled Hannah aside in the kitchen. "There may be men come looking. Then they'll find a midwife and a sick woman and 2 scared children, Maggie. They might be hard men, Hannah." "I am also a hard woman, Margaret Holloway. My husband ain't here to back me, but I can shoot, and I've been shooting since I was 9 years old, and I have killed a man in this kitchen before for less than what you just told me." "You have." "In '79. Don't ask." Ethan stood in the doorway with his hat in his hand. "Mrs. Mercer." "Yes, mister. That woman in there is named Mary Caldwell." "I gathered." "She's worth more to me than gold." "I gathered that too, mister." "Anything happens to her or those children?" "Nothing's gonna happen to 'em that wouldn't happen to me first. You ride, both of you. I'll keep her breathin'." Ethan went to Mary. She was awake. She shouldn't have been, but she was. "Ethan." "Mary." "You're leavin'." "I'm leavin'. I gotta finish this. There's a woman here named Hannah. She's gonna fix you up. I'm comin' back for you, Mary." "I know it." "I'm comin' back." Ethan. "Yes." "After." "After what?" "After it's done. With Henry. After the papers. After the courtroom." "Yes." "Where do we go?" He put his hand on hers. "Anywhere you want, Mary." "Anywhere I want." "Anywhere on God's earth." "Then we go home, Ethan." "Where's home?" "Wherever you are." He couldn't speak for a moment. "Yes, ma'am." He kissed her on the forehead. He didn't mean to. He didn't think it through. He just did it. And Mary closed her eyes, and a small, tired smile came onto her mouth, and she went to sleep. He went to the children. Sam was at the bedside, 8 years old, already a man. "Sam?" "Yes, Mr. Walker." "You take care of your mama till I get back." "Yes." "You take care of Lucy." "Yes." "And Sam." "Yes. You did good tonight, son. I want you to remember that. Whatever happens for the rest of your life, whatever a man ever says to you, you remember when it counted, when it came down to it. You held a knife in your hand at 8 years old, and you stood between your sister and a bad man, and you didn't run. There's grown men who can't say that. You hear me, son?" The boy's chin shook. "Yes." Ethan put his hand on Sam's head 1 second. Then he picked up Lucy. The little girl wrapped both arms around his neck and pressed her face into his shoulder. "Mr. Walker." "Yes, sweetheart." "I saved you a piece of horehound candy." "You did." "It's in my pocket." "You hold on to it for me, Lucy. You hold on to it till I get back. And the day I get back, you and me are going to eat that candy together. And we'll get you a whole bag of your own. All right." "All right." He set her down. He walked out of the Mercer house without looking back, because if he looked back, he couldn't ride. He and Margaret Holloway rode through the night. They hit the rail spur at Hawthorne at dawn the next day. Margaret flashed her Pinkerton badge at the dispatcher. The dispatcher put them on a livestock train going east. They rode in a cattle car for 16 hours straight. Ethan didn't sleep. Margaret didn't either. Somewhere in the middle of Wyoming, with the rails clacking under them, Margaret spoke for the first time in hours. "Mr. Walker." "Yes." "You and Mrs. Caldwell." "What about us?" "Don't tell me there ain't something." "There ain't something. Yet." "Mr. Walker, I have been a Pinkerton 6 years. I have read men. I have read 'em right, and I have read 'em wrong, and I am rarely wrong. I watched you put your hand on her face in that doorway. I watched her say your name. I am telling you there's something." Ethan was quiet a long time. "Margaret." "Yes. My wife and my baby boy died of cholera in the spring of '85. My wife was carrying our second when she went. I rode away from the grave, and I rode up into them mountains, and I built that cabin with my own 2 hands, and I told myself I was done with being anybody's anything ever again. 9 years, Margaret. 9 years I lived up there alone." "Yes, sir." "And then a woman knocked on my door at 2 in the morning." "Yes, sir." "I don't know what's between her and me yet. I ain't gonna name it before it's named. But I know that when I got off that horse at the Mercer place tonight, and I looked at her laying on that bed, and I looked at that boy holding her hand, and I looked at that little girl wrapped around my neck, I knew something, Margaret. I knew what I'd been missing for 9 years." "What was it?" "A reason." Margaret didn't say anything. "Mr. Walker." "Yes. We're gonna get you back to her. You and me both, whatever it costs." "Whatever it costs." They reached Cheyenne the 3rd day. Margaret didn't take the papers to the federal prosecutor named Mason. "Why not?" "Because Senator Caldwell has people in Mason's office, Mr. Walker. I've been thinking on it. We don't go to Cheyenne. We don't go to Denver. We don't even go to Washington, not yet." "Then where?" "There's a newspaper in Chicago, Mr. Walker. The Tribune. I have been corresponding with one of their reporters for 2 years. A woman named Ida Hatcher. She has been investigating the railroad land frauds for those entire 2 years. The day Ida Hatcher prints the names on those papers on the front page of her newspaper, every senator on that list becomes too radioactive for any colleague to defend. Every cattleman on that list becomes too dangerous for any banker to lend to. The federal judge becomes too compromised to sit on a bench. And Reuben Browen. Reuben Browen reads Chicago papers, Mr. Walker. Reuben Browen was a railroad clerk before he turned outlaw. He reads. And the day he reads who really paid Silas, he ain't gonna ride for the survivors of the Caldwell family. He's gonna ride for the men who paid Silas. And we're gonna let him. You're saying we let Reuben Browen kill the senators for us. I'm saying we publish the truth, Mr. Walker. Whatever happens after we publish it, that's the hand of God. Ethan looked at her a long time. Margaret. Yes. That ain't lawful. No, sir, it ain't. That's the kind of thing a marshal swore an oath against. Yes, sir. And you're asking me to do it anyway. I am Mr. Walker. He was quiet a long time. Then he nodded. All right, Margaret. All right. I've been a lawful man for 9 years up on a mountain, Margaret. It didn't save Painted Rock. It didn't save Daniel Caldwell. It didn't save a 16-year-old boy named Sammy Pettigrew. The lawful way is for men who got time. We ain't got time. Send the papers. They went to Chicago. Ida Hatcher was 36, unmarried, and as cold-eyed a reporter as Ethan Walker had ever met. She read the papers Mary had carried under her dress for 3 weeks. She read them twice. She didn't say a word until she'd finished. Then she said, "Mr. Walker, Miss Holloway, I am going to need 3 days." "For what?" "To verify. I will not print one of these names without independent verification. If any of these men have a defense, my paper has to die in court. So, 3 days." She published on the 4th day. The headline ran across the entire front page. Below it, the full list of 7 names. Below that, 8 columns of evidence transcribed from the Caldwell papers. Ida Hatcher had not held back one word. By noon, the wire services had picked it up. By supper time, every paper in the country had it. By the following morning, 2 of the senators on the list had locked themselves in their houses with hired guards. The federal judge in Silver Creek hanged himself in his own chambers before the federal marshal could come arrest him. Senator Henry Caldwell of Wyoming Territory boarded a train for Mexico. He didn't make it to Mexico. A man named Reuben Broen got on the same train 2 stations down the line. He sat across from Henry Caldwell in the dining car. He ordered coffee. He drank it. Then he stood up and he shot Henry Caldwell 3 times in the chest in front of 40 witnesses, and he turned to the conductor and he said, "I would like to surrender now, please." He was hanged 6 weeks later. Before the rope dropped, the marshal asked him if he had a final word. "Tell Walker." Reuben Broen said that we're square. The marshal had no idea what that meant, but he wired it anyway, because a man's last words got passed along even if no one understood them. Ethan got the wire in Denver. He read it once. He folded it. He put it in his pocket. Then he saddled his horse and he rode west. He came up on the Mercer place at sunset on the 11th day after he'd left it. Hannah Mercer was on the porch. She didn't say a word when she saw him. She just nodded once and tipped her head toward the door, and Ethan got off his horse and walked up the steps and went inside. Mary was in the kitchen. She was on her feet. She was thin and pale, and she was leaning on the back of a chair, but she was on her feet, and she had Lucy in her arms, and Sam was at the table, peeling a potato with a small knife and concentrating on it like it was the only job in the world. Mary looked up. She saw him. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then she said very quiet, "Sam, Lucy, Mr. Walker's home." Sam looked up. The boy didn't move at first. Then something broke in his face the way a dam breaks when it's been holding water for too long, and he was off the chair and across the kitchen, and his arms were around Ethan's waist, and he was crying the way an 8-year-old boy cries when he's been pretending to be a man for 2 weeks straight and doesn't have to anymore. "Mr. Walker, Mr. Walker." "It's all right, son. You said you was coming back." "I told you I was coming back." "You said?" "Yeah, son, I said, and I came." Lucy wriggled out of her mother's arms. She came across the floor. She held something out to him in her small fist, a piece of horehound candy. "You said we'd eat it when you got back." "I sure did, sweetheart." "Are you back?" "I am back, Lucy. I am back to stay." He took the piece of candy. He broke it in half. He gave half to Lucy. He put the other half in his own mouth. Then he straightened up. He looked at Mary. She hadn't moved from the chair. "Mary." "Ethan." "Henry. I read the papers." "You know." "I know." "You all right, Mary?" "I'm standin'." "You all right with what happened to him?" She looked at him a long second. "Daniel was a good man, Ethan. The best I ever knew before you. Henry put him in a livery stable with a rope around his neck. Henry was going to do worse to my babies. Henry got what he got. I'm not going to grieve him." "All right. I'm not going to lie either. I won't pretend the grievin' is for him. The grievin' is for Daniel. The grievin's been for Daniel for 3 weeks, and it'll be for Daniel for a long time yet. But what I feel about Henry is nothin', and nothin' is what he earned. All right, Mary." She let go of the chair. She walked to him. She walked slow because her legs were still weak, but she walked all the way across the kitchen, and she stopped 1 foot in front of him, and she looked up. "You said you were coming back." "I came back." "You said anywhere on God's earth." "I said it." "I want to go home, Ethan." "Where's home Mary?" She put her hand flat on his chest, right over his heart. "Right here." He put his hand over hers. "Then you're home, ma'am." They were married in the spring of the following year by a circuit preacher under a cottonwood tree on the edge of the property Ethan had bought with the reward money the federal government had paid out for the Caldwell papers. Margaret Holloway came down from Chicago to stand for Mary. Sam stood for Ethan. Lucy carried the flowers. Hannah Mercer made the wedding cake. The cabin up in the mountains where it had all started, Ethan kept it. He never went back, but he kept it. He paid a man in Silver Creek to keep an eye on it. He couldn't say why. Maybe because every man needs a place he came from. Maybe because every man needs to remember where he was the night he chose to become a man again. Mary had a baby in the second year, a girl. They named her Eliza after Margaret Holloway's sister, the school teacher who had died at Painted Rock, because every name a person carries is a debt to somebody. And Ethan and Mary had decided early they were going to spend the rest of their lives paying down the debts they owed. Sam grew up tall. He went to law school in Denver in the year of his 18th birthday. He took the name Walker. He never used the name Caldwell again because the name Caldwell had been a name Henry had stolen from his father, and Sam wasn't a man to wear a stolen name. Lucy grew up tall too. She married a doctor in the year of her 22nd birthday. She had 4 children of her own. She kept that piece of horehound candy in a small tin box on her dresser her whole life. Ethan Walker lived to be 73 years old. On the last day of his life with Mary, holding one of his hands, and his daughter Eliza holding the other with Sam and Lucy, and 7 grandchildren in the room with the long oilskin coat, and the faded Marshall's star folded in a chest at the foot of the bed, because some things a man keeps even when he no longer needs them. Ethan Walker opened his eyes one last time. He looked at Mary. He smiled. "Mary." "I'm here, Ethan. You knocked on my door." "I did." "Best thing that ever happened to me, ma'am." "And you, sir." He closed his eyes. He didn't open them again. The mountain that had hidden him for 9 years stood empty up at the edge of the territory. The cabin still stood. The wind still moved through it. And in the long quiet after Ethan Walker died, somewhere up in those mountains, the door of an empty cabin swung open in the summer breeze, and a piece of paper that had been pinned to the inside of that door for 47 years lifted just once and settled back. The paper had 2 words on it in Ethan Walker's own hand, written the morning he had ridden away from that cabin forever. It said she lived, and so did he. And